Tonight, the stock market steadies ahead of Trump's tariffs taking effect, but there's still major concern tonight about the long-term impacts. Tonight, the stock market steadies ahead of Trump's tariffs taking effect, but there's still major concern tonight about the long-term impacts. Tonight, the White House maintains trade deals are in the works. Those 10 to 50% tariffs set to take effect by the time the markets overseas open overnight. China is vowing to fight back as President Trump says he'll hold his ground. The chilling moments caught on camera in the Dominican Republic, showing the moment a roof collapsed at a popular nightclub. A band was playing on the stage when everything came crashing down. Tonight, search teams are frantically looking for survivors. The terrifying near-death experience for a Pennsylvania driver. A tree slams onto her car, and amazingly, this driver walks away unscathed. And the howls heard round the world from the first dire wolves to walk the earth in 10,000 years. But not everyone is convinced this colossal achievement will help our planet, or that these are even dire wolves at all. Our ABC News exclusive inside the lab where these wolves went from dream to reality.
How do you definitively say to them, no, this is a dire wolf?
It's a great question, and this is really a human construct. I think that the best definition of a species is if it looks like that species, if it is acting like that species, if it is filling the role of that species, then you've done it.
It's back.
Now it's time for them to be afraid of us.
And no spoilers. Handmaid's Tale superstar Elizabeth Moss is here with a preview of the new final season of the show.
I think for the fans, it feels very much like a sort of love letter to them and rewarding them for their patience after 9 years of watching this show.
The lesson she thinks we should all draw from the emotional and dramatic last season.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin tonight with that roller coaster on Wall Street and the world economy hurtling toward new tariffs. Tonight, the Trump administration is holding firm on those tariffs set to be in effect by the time we all wake up tomorrow, saying negotiation is the only way countries can work out a solution. Some describe it as an economic game of chicken, and the stakes could not be higher. The entire world's economy is on the line. Today, China said it will hit back with its own tariffs, but Trump is claiming China does, in fact, want to negotiate. And while this is all being worked out, there is real concern about when American consumers will feel the impact at the grocery store, the gas station, car lots, and beyond. Analysts say fruits and vegetables could start to spike as soon as next week. We're standing by to hear from a Republican congressman who is also a cattle farmer. But first, our senior political correspondent Rachel Scott leads us off from the White House.
Tonight, with the financial markets all closing down, President Trump forging ahead with his massive tariffs, ratcheting up his trade war with one of America's largest trading partners, China. A steep 104% tariff on all Chinese products imported to the U.S. set to go into effect at midnight. China accusing the U.S. of bullying after President Trump last week imposed an additional 34% tariff on Chinese goods. China then retaliating with a 34% tariff on all American products. The president then raising the stakes, warning if China didn't back down by noon today, he would increase the tax on everything that comes into this country from China to 104%. But China refused, saying it would not give in to blackmail. Wall Street reeling, the Dow dropping another 320 points today. It has lost 4,579 points since President Trump announced his massive tariffs last week, down 10% in 4 days. On Capitol Hill, Republican senators who rarely break from Trump now feeling the pressure from companies and constituents back home.
This is creating some anxiety, this current tariff posture among some of my constituents.
I'm hoping and I hope you and the president are very sensitive about companies potentially going bankrupt by these actions.
Whose throat do I get to choke if this proves to be wrong?
Tonight, the president saying trade negotiations with some countries are happening. China wasn't one of them.
Right now, Japan is flying here to make a deal. South Korea is flying here to make a deal.
And within the White House, the tariffs exposing deep divisions among some of the president's closest aides. Elon Musk attacking trade advisor Peter Navarro as a moron who's dumber than a sack of bricks, speaking out in support of free trade with Europe.
Both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation, effectively creating a free trade zone between Europe and North America.
Navarro swiping back at Musk, saying his Tesla cars are built with foreign parts.
Elon's a car manufacturer, but he's not a car manufacturer, he's a car assembler.
The White House trying to downplay it all.
Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys.
But as the White House brushes this off as boys being boys, millions of American families and businesses are already grappling with the real-world effects of the president's trade policies. In Potomac, Maryland, contractor Scott Sailing hopes Washington understands the new tariffs will make it more expensive to build homes and to buy them, showing me that in this American economy, he relies on imported products, from the flooring to the HVAC units.
No, China.
All right, what about the railing here?
That's Canada.
Looking up, seeing the metal brackets.
The metal brackets, also China.
Nearly everything that it requires to build this home is made somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
He says his costs are already rising because of the president's tariffs, and that means the cost of the price of the homes he builds will go up too.
We've got anywhere from a 5 to 20% increase on our roofing materials, lumber materials, and metal.
And
so it's already here.
Those tariffs, you'll just pass off to your consumers, your customers?
I've got no choice but to.
Many between a rock and a hard place with this. Rachel Scott joins us now from the White House. And Rachel, of course, we're just hours away from these tariffs going into effect in 60 countries. Yeah. What are you hearing? Will this happen, or are the deals in the works?
Well, the president says that he has had outreach by some odd 70 countries so far. He says that a team from Japan as well as South Korea is coming here to the United States to have these negotiations and talks with his administration. But the bottom line, Lindsay, as of right now, the tariffs on those 60 countries, including that 104% tariff on Chinese imports, that is all set to go into effect tonight at 12:01, just past midnight. Those tariffs the president is moving forward with, and ultimately experts believe that this is going to raise prices in just a matter of weeks for the American consumer. Lindsay.
All right, we will know soon enough. Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much, Rachel. Joining us now is Republican Representative Marlin Stutzman from Indiana. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. You've been very vocal in your support for President Trump's proposed tariffs. Give us a sense of why that is.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. But I believe that, Made in America is on a comeback. We all talk about buying Made in America. And instead, what's happened over the last several decades is that a lot of these manufactured goods are made elsewhere, whether it's Mexico or China. I remember back in the 90s, we talked a lot about free trade, and it all sounded good. But unfortunately, because of the advantages that other countries, or I should say manipulations that other countries would take advantage of their own labor. They, of course, subsidize their utility costs. They just play on a different playing field. A lot of those jobs left and went overseas. And so President Trump is finally, this is not a trade war that started by the United States. This is finally the United States saying, we're going to shoot back to those countries who have tariffs on the United States and the goods that we produce.
But a question for you. Obviously, it would take, in many cases, years for businesses to be able to actually build here in the United States. And then they're on top of that, further compounding it is the idea that, in China, they might be able to pay somebody $5 an hour to make a product that here in the United States, you'd have to pay somebody $35 an hour to make. And so in the end, for the consumer, does it end up costing us more?
Well, it's going to cost them more as well. It's not going to just cost Americans. I mean, I believe that we've seen years go by where we have seen agriculture, manufacturing, other sectors that have been hollowed out because of the unfair trade agreements or the trade policies with other countries. The American farmer is at a disadvantage in a lot of ways. One in particular is the Australian beef situation, where they've banned American beef since the early 2000s because of mad cow disease. We understood why they did it at that time, but here we are 20 years later and they still have a ban on American beef. I believe that a good partner is going to say, we don't need tariffs on American goods, and we're going to reciprocate that with zero tariffs. So what Elon Musk is saying, a zero tariff policy, I think is good for all of us, especially us and our allies. And it's only going to be beneficial for our constituents. When we have the opportunity to rebuild a manufacturing base and produce goods here in the United States, we'll be a stronger country for that.
You mentioned farmers. You yourself are a cattle farmer, and these tariffs, as you well know, could hit farmers especially hard. The American Soybean Association, for example, said the tariffs on China could cost soybean farmers $6 billion in lost revenue. That's just soybean farmers. Are you concerned if the deals that Trump wants to materialize don't? What comes then? Because what you're suggesting is it will be good for us if these countries agree, but there's no guarantee these countries are going to agree.
No, but I think you're seeing that most of them are coming to the table already. I mean, just remember, Lindsay, too, we just came through a 4-year period where we saw inflation out of control. And, coming from retail and manufacturing, the cost of labor, everything has gone up over the last 4 years. And so many of us are at our wits' end. Rural America voted for President Trump. And while this is going to be a bit rocky in some spaces, I'm hearing from other sectors like manufacturing. I just had a lunch today with a group of steel manufacturers, and they said this is going to be good for them. Automobile industry, we're seeing an increase in production in Fort Wayne, Indiana at our GM truck plant. We're seeing the investment that's being made, almost $5 trillion in proposed investment in the United States since President Trump started talking about tariff policy. This is going to be good in the long run. Short term, a little bit of pain, but I think that these countries are going to come very quickly. He's not willing to give any waivers, and he's saying, look, these are blanket tariffs unless you want to come negotiate.
And you mentioned that, rural America overwhelmingly did vote for President Trump. Many people said it was because of the economy. And so when we're talking about eggs, fruits, vegetables, what's your message to your constituents who are concerned about paying more? That was, in many cases, the reason people said that they supported Trump, because he said day one he was going to bring inflation down. He was going to make the cost of everyday items, as we're looking to people going through grocery stores, he was going to make it more affordable. And so right now you have people who are not only anticipating now higher prices, but also looking at their 401ks and seeing how much money they're losing at the same time.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Lindsay. I mean, the last couple of days have been rough, but I'll tell you this too. I would rather see President Trump doing what he's doing and to setting the stage for our country to be strong economically, because we have a debt crisis coming at us soon if we don't do something. We had several outside voices coming here to Capitol Hill, that Ray Daley being one of them, who's talking about the fact that we've got to get our deficit and debt under control. Our Treasury Secretary, that is his primary objective, is how do we reduce our deficits and debt, because it is going to affect the economy. A stock market crash over debt default is catastrophic, and it's going to be almost impossible to recover from that for many, many years, because the American economy is the strongest. The American treasuries have always been dependable, and even there's some instability there right now. But in the long run, this is going to be good. And I think, people talk about eggs. We've seen the bird flu across the country. We're addressing that. Egg prices are coming down. Once the American producer has the opportunity to compete with other countries and we can sell into our markets, then we will see a leveling off and a stability that's good for everybody.
Congressman Marlin Stutzman of Indiana, we thank you so much for coming on the show, Congressman.
Thank you.
Buying property is considered by some to be the pinnacle of the American dream, but it's the things that make a house a home, like home appliances, that have builder confidence at a 7-month low. Our Jacqueline Lee headed to Raleigh, North Carolina. She continues to track the impact that tariffs are having on people and businesses across our country.
It's bustling inside this new construction home in Raleigh, North Carolina. The Research Triangle booming with new homes as thousands flock to affordable cities. But tariffs have the potential to change home construction as we know it.
Which includes the
homebuilder Alex Yost says they're rethinking where they source materials.
This one, as you can see, is made in China. These other ones that are right above us may have been sourced domestically. And so our choices may narrow down a little bit as tariffs come into play.
So before you might have picked the product based off how it looked, but now you'd be considering where exactly is it imported from?
We're going to be looking at pricing.
About 7% of the products used in new construction come from other countries. That, of course, fluctuates depending on which products a buyer wants and how much they're willing to spend.
It could drive up costs quite a bit, and that's where we get into understanding where the tariffs are and where we may have some choices.
Builder confidence in newly built single-family homes is the lowest it's been in 7 months. Home costs are expected to rise another $9,200 due to tariffs. Home builders breathed a collective sigh of relief after President Trump exempted major construction materials like Canadian lumber and Mexican gypsum from retaliatory tariffs. Gypsum is found in plaster, drywall, and cement. But prices will rise for steel, aluminum, copper, home appliances, and other building materials sourced from abroad.
Are you nervous about the tariffs increasing the price for things, especially when it comes to home buying?
Personally, no. And mainly because I don't, after a whole year, have a whole lot of experience on what that's going to mean for me as a homeowner.
First-time homebuyers tell us they're not concerned about tariffs impacting their ability to buy a house, but it's the cost of what makes a house a home. Think the things inside, like a washer or a refrigerator. The tariffs could then drive up the cost of home ownership.
Well, they're looking at, monthly payment, and they have a set number in mind.
Realtor Leonard Wyndham says homebuyers, especially first-timers, care about one thing: cost per month, which is pushing homebuyers further away from city centers to places like this, 20 miles north.
Long term, what do you think tariffs will do to the housing market?
Nobody knows. That is anybody's guess.
But if buyers pull back amid economic uncertainty and there's less demand for homes, new home construction will slow too, making the chronic housing shortage even worse.
This one, I think, is domestically sourced.
Yost says he's most concerned about tariffs impacting product availability.
When we start to see tariffs come into play, what then happens to an interrupted supply chain, or is there an interrupted supply chain that causes it to, take a couple weeks longer to get cabinets? That can extend my build time. Then the client may not be in their home for a couple extra months. All of those things have real human impact. Every single month that we're not closed on this home is a month that we're paying for that home to be here and not completed.
Next tonight, to the horrific and deadly roof collapse at the Jet Set nightclub in the Dominican Republic. At least 79 people were killed when the building, packed with politicians, athletes, and concert goers for a merengue concert, was reduced to rubble. That set off a desperate scramble to free hundreds trapped under slabs of concrete. That effort continues tonight. Victor Oquendo has the very latest.
Tonight, authorities in the Dominican Republic investigating this devastating roof collapse at a popular nightclub that has now left at least 66 people dead and more than 160 wounded. Video circulating online showing what appears to be the moments before the roof came crashing down around 12:30 a.m. This man pointing at the roof, saying something fell. That singer performing on stage also looking up. Within seconds, the collapse and screams as the video goes dark. In another video, this group rushing away from the dance floor moments before the tragic accident. The images from the aftermath are graphic. Bodies on top of the rubble. Just behind them, a man and woman apparently trapped. First responders scaling slabs of concrete across the club floor. You can see what was the bar. The scope of the devastation seen from above. Authorities using heavy machinery to dig through the debris. Hours later, this man pulled out of the destroyed club on the stretcher, alive. The staggering death toll climbing all day as we learn more about the victims that include a saxophonist playing with the band at the time of the collapse, politicians, and athletes. World Series champion and former pitcher for the Houston Astros, New York Yankees, and New York Mets, Octavio Dotel, dying on his way to the hospital.
The Supreme Court upheld President Trump's deportation plan, allowing him to use the Alien Enemies Act to send migrants to El Salvador. ABC's Matt Rivers is at that notorious prison in El Salvador tonight and just left that prison. Matt, what can you tell us?
Hey, Lindsay, yeah, we just came out of what's called Secot. It is perhaps now the most notorious prison, at least in this part of the world. It's in a rural area outside of San Salvador, here in El Salvador, and it is where thousands and thousands and thousands of people are incarcerated that the El Salvadoran government has sent there. Those people have now been joined by hundreds of people deported by the Trump administration in recent weeks. They are living, according to the prison director, in the same sort of conditions that we witnessed firsthand. Now, we were not allowed to go speak or talk to the Venezuelans ourselves. We weren't allowed to see the cell block in which they are residing, but we were taken to another cell block that the prison director specifically told me has the exact same conditions as those that are currently being experienced by the Venezuelan, the alleged gang members deported by the Trump administration. And there's really no other way to put it. The conditions that we saw are brutal, they are bleak, they are harsh. The El Salvadoran government says the people that are in there are what they call the worst of the worst. They say they deserve treatment like that because of the crimes they've committed. Of course, ABC News has no way to independently verify whether all the people that we saw were in fact criminals, whether some of them were just innocents caught up in this wave of detentions. But no matter what, the simple reality is that the people that we saw will likely be spending the rest of their lives inside those conditions. And so as we're having this immigration debate, these deportation debates in the United States, it's important to see this kind of stuff, I think, because this kind of place is where the Trump administration is deporting people, including those who say they were innocent. So it was really striking to see this, Lindsay.
I can imagine. Very important to see that. Matt Rivers, thank you. Matt, we'll have a full report on that prison tomorrow night here on Prime. Federal prosecutors have shared new evidence against the man who tried to kill President Trump at his Florida golf course last September. The suspect, Ryan Ruth, allegedly tried to buy anti-aircraft weapons, sending the seller a message saying he needed the equipment to stop Trump from getting elected. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has this story.
Driver! Tonight, months after his dramatic arrest, federal prosecutors releasing disturbing new details, which state claims show Ryan Ruth's apparent obsession with assassinating President Trump. Before he allegedly stalked Trump on his Florida golf course, prosecutors say Ruth, a fierce supporter of Ukraine who had visited the war-torn country multiple times, reached out to an associate there. His request, send me an RPG, rocket-propelled grenade, or Stinger surface-to-air missile. Prosecutors claim Ruth desperately wanted to blow up then-candidate Trump's plane, writing, I need equipment so that Trump cannot get elected.
Take a look at what happened.
The second assassination attempt coming just 2 months after Trump was nearly killed in Pennsylvania. Authorities in Florida say Ruth waited for 12 hours in a sniper's nest just off Trump's golf course. A Secret Service agent positioned one hole ahead of the president, spotting the barrel of an assault rifle in the bushes, engaging the suspect before he could take a shot at Trump. And now the FBI says Ruth could have had an even more powerful weapon after he first tried to buy a .50 caliber rifle capable of piercing body armor and slicing through car doors.
Pierre Thomas reporting. Protests have erupted in Pocatello, Idaho, after the police shot a 17-year-old teen with autism. The boy was allegedly wielding a knife when someone called the police. Officers shot the 17-year-old multiple times, although he was standing behind a fence. Eyewitnesses captured the incident on video, which, we should warn you, contains disturbing images. ABC's Trevor Ault has this story.
Tonight, outrage after multiple Idaho police officers opened fire on a teenage boy with autism. Officials in Pocatello say a neighbor called 911 Saturday evening, reporting what they described as a man who seemed drunk, threatening two people with a knife.
He's pretty drunk. He's just running out with a knife and then falling over, and I think he was stabbing someone actually just now.
The family says the boy, Victor Perez, is 17 and has autism and physical disabilities. They hope police would de-escalate the situation. Instead, video shows officers approaching, telling the teen to drop the weapon. He moves toward them, and they open fire from the other side of the fence seconds after arriving.
What the heck? What was that? 9 bullets. They took 9 bullets out of that kid. He died twice. They bring him back, and now I got that. He had brain damage, and now we have to handle that.
Pocatello's police chief defending his officers' actions.
We know this incident has deeply affected the community. The full picture requires careful review of all facts and evidence.
Trevor Ault reporting there. A California youth soccer coach has been charged with murder after a missing 13-year-old boy was found dead on the side of a road. The boy's family reported him missing last week after he boarded a train to visit that coach. Here's our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman.
Tonight, a youth soccer coach, 43-year-old Mario Garcia Aquino, charged in the murder of a 13-year-old boy.
Mr. Garcia Aquino murdered 13-year-old Oscar Omar Hernandez on March 28, 2025.
Authorities say Oscar Omar Hernandez boarded a train in Los Angeles to visit his coach about 70 miles north of L.A., but when he didn't return home, his family began looking for him and reported him missing. On April 2nd, investigators finding Hernandez's body on the side of a road in a remote area, nearly 2 hours from where he had gone to visit that coach.
Pido justicia.
Hernandez's mother asking for justice to be served. Garcia Aquino charged with 1 count of murder during the commission of lewd acts with a child. The district attorney calling Garcia Aquino a predator and also charging him with sexually assaulting a different teenager at his home in 2022 and accusing him of assaulting another 16-year-old boy in February. And they say they think there could be more.
There's always a fear that there's more victims.
Our thanks to Matt Gutman for that. Newly released video shows the moment first responders raced to rescue a firefighter after a house exploded in Illinois. The dramatic footage captured on body camera shows the moment the house on fire exploded, trapping a firefighter under a collapsed porch. After the explosion, officers and bystanders rushed to the home to save him. The group was able to lift the porch and pull the firefighter to safety. He miraculously suffered only minor injuries. Still ahead, an incredible escape when a falling tree crushed an SUV stuck in traffic. And the ABC News exclusive inside the making of the dire wolf are Maria Villarreal, the only TV reporter allowed inside the lab where Colossal says they made history.
At that moment, when we saw those first lines of computer code that told us that we had wolf DNA, I knew we were going to be able to do this project.
Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, we want to take you inside that stunning scientific breakthrough, the return of the dire wolf. These wolf pups certainly look cute, but beneath all that fur is a fascinating story. Should humans be trying to bring back what's gone extinct or focus on saving what we already have? In tonight's Prime Focus, Maria Villarreal and our team got exclusive access inside Colossal Biosciences lab where they dreamt up the dire wolf. But we also spoke with critics of this technology who worry if humans tinker too much with things, we could risk ruining our planet for good.
Colossal Biosciences says it's brought back an extinct species, the first time ever for humanity. These are dire wolves, well known from HBO's hit show, Game of Thrones.
There are no dire wolves south of the wall. No, there are 5.
These animals haven't walked the earth for some 10,000 years.
The dire wolf is the first de-extinct species. This is the exogenous development lab, so this is where we're working on the artificial wolf.
ABC News given exclusive access inside Colossal's state-of-the-art laboratory. Chief scientist Dr. Beth Shapiro showing us around.
And we scan through the genomes of the 2 dire wolves.
Dr. Shapiro believes the work going on in this small lab could have a big impact on all life on our planet.
Scientists have predicted that by 2050, more than half of species that are alive today could become extinct. I don't want that future.
Colossal has set ambitious goals.
Woolly mammoths, now long extinct, once roamed these northern landscapes in large herds, playing a critical role in the stability of their ecosystem.
Ben Lamb founded Colossal initially on the idea of bringing back the woolly mammoth.
Are you as obsessed with it as everybody else?
Yeah, I am. You know, we had woolly mammoths walking the earth at the same time that humans were building the pyramids.
That idea has gotten Colossal a $10 billion valuation and a lot of high-profile investors like Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, Peter Jackson.
We're not a foundation, we're not a nonprofit, we're not an academic think tank. You know, we are trying to actually, develop products and build technologies.
Just a few weeks ago, the company announcing the woolly mouse, a new type of mouse with a thicker coat of fur modeled after the woolly mammoth.
People love them, and it just made people come to our website, which maybe made people read about the de-extinction project.
The announcement not without some controversy, with critics saying it's a PR stunt that doesn't actually prove Colossal is any closer to bringing back the woolly mammoth.
The woolly mouse is a proof of technology. It's not a PR stunt. What this proves is that our end-to-end process of taking data from, DNA, identifying genes that drive core traits, and so it is a proof of technology, and then the direwolves are just one step further beyond that.
Colossal keeping their direwolf project secret from the world for more than 18 months.
How did this happen? We're making a list of what are the cool animals that are extinct that people would be interested in, and the direwolf comes up.
At the time, there wasn't enough direwolf DNA available to succeed. Beth's team extracted higher quality DNA from fossils, and what came next was a breakthrough.
At that moment, when we saw those first lines of computer code that told us that we had wolf DNA, I knew we were going to be able to do this project.
Colossal electing to use a gray wolf as the base for their dire wolf.
So we've taken a gray wolf genome, a gray wolf cell, which is already genetically 99.5% identical to dire wolves, and we've edited those cells at multiple places in its DNA sequence to contain the dire wolf version of the DNA. We have an embryo. Then we put that embryo into a surrogate mom, and that embryo develops into a fetus and then is born. That animal looks like a direwolf, it will behave like a direwolf, and it is a direwolf.
Colossal's chief animal officer, Matt James, is in charge of taking care of the 3 dire wolves, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi.
So there's a lot of challenges. Now that the animal's here, it's how do you care for an animal?
Colossal is keeping the dire wolves at an undisclosed location in a 2,000-acre enclosed nature preserve. ABC News asked to see the wolves up close, and Colossal declined.
The responsibility lies on me and my team in order to make sure that those animals live the best life possible, experience the most optimal welfare possible.
The dire wolves are roughly 7 months old, and Colossal tells us no animals were harmed in their making. The surrogates, 2 dogs, have been adopted through the Humane Society.
So I had all the confidence that this was going to work. We thought really hard about what edits to make to the DNA. The edits that we made them really light-colored in coat, and so when I saw them born and they were white, I was like, we've done it. Those are dire wolves.
But not everyone is convinced.
I don't think they are actually dire wolves. I don't think what we have is dire wolves. What we have is something new. We have a mostly gray wolf that looks like a dire wolf. Well, the cool thing about dogs versus wolves is that their skulls are really shortened.
Dr. Julie Meechan is a paleontologist. She's one of the few people in the world who knows as much about dire and gray wolves as Dr. Shapiro.
So I think that if you were to ask me if you could make a dire wolf from a gray wolf, I would say the genetics might not line up.
Inside her lab in Iowa, she shows us gray wolf fossils and explains how the 2 animals diverged millions of years ago.
I would say that they are similar enough that you could probably tweak a gray wolf genome to look like a dire wolf, but you certainly could approximate the dire wolf's appearance using a gray wolf model.
How do you definitively say to them, no, this is a dire wolf?
It's a great question. And this is really a human construct. I think that the best definition of a species is if it looks like that species, if it is acting like that species, if it is filling the role of that species, then you've done it.
Dr. Meechan is working with Dr. Shapiro on an upcoming research paper about dire wolves, but is not paid by or advising Colossal.
My question about the de-extinction events is this for purely entertainment purposes for people? The mission of helping to preserve the species, that is a mission that I could get behind 100%. I think that we need to preserve the species that we still have here on Earth.
Colossal says they are starting to do just that.
We developed a new approach to cloning that we also used to clone 4 red wolves. This is the only endemic American wolf, the most endangered wolf in the world, and we've created 4 of them that can augment the population right now that's surviving because of technologies that we developed on the path to the dire wolf.
There are under 24 red wolves left in the wild, and Colossal is hoping the red wolf is just the beginning for countless animals on the verge of extinction.
This sort of technology, as it becomes more widely available, is going to have tremendous benefits across biodiversity conservation.
I think we have a moral obligation to try to right some of the wrongs we've done on the planet.
Even some of the company's critics agree this type of work could have a huge impact.
It has the potential to advance our understanding of genetics and of reproduction of animals.
Dr. Robert Kleitzman is a bioethicist and geneticist at Columbia University. And while excited about the dire wolf,
I mean, gee, that's impressive. There's a certain wow factor, like how cool is that, right?
but he does have concerns.
So one wants to be careful if you're mucking around with genes that there may be things we don't understand. You may produce a wolf that's twice as ferocious. You may produce a super wolf. And this is, of course, the film Jurassic Park from a few years ago showed sort of a science fiction version of we're going to bring back a dinosaur and ends up attacking all of us.
I think where a lot of people's brains are going to go, which is Jurassic Park. There is a part in the movie where Dr. Malcolm says,
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
You know, you're the first person who's ever quoted that to me?
No.
Yeah, no.
I was gonna say, but so you hear that then a lot.
Yes, our motivation is to make extinction a thing of the past. You know, if we decide as a society that these new technologies that are at our fingertips are too risky, that we don't want to take the chance, that we're not going to try to save species by implementing genetic engineering types of technologies, that is a choice that also carries consequences.
Colossal is full steam ahead, pledging to bring back the woolly mammoth by 2028.
Is it realistic to say that we really will meet that timeline of 2028?
Yeah, I mean, we're on target for it right now.
And no matter where you stand, the implications are earth-shattering.
Ecosystems are very delicately balanced, and nature is far more complicated than our ability as humans to understand it or to understand all the possible unforeseen consequences.
Is it a stunt?
This work that we're doing, maybe it's a stunt, you can call it that, but if that stunt is engaging people to think about whether they want a career in science, about being hopeful about the future for biodiversity, I'll do it again and again.
What a thought-provoking and interesting story. Our thanks to Maria for that. Coming up, the quick-thinking fire rescue. Police suddenly jump into action, and it was all caught on camera. And 499 of the top 500 richest people in the world have lost money over tariffs, except for one. We take a look by the numbers. Welcome back, everyone. Investors have lost large sums of money, on paper anyway, since President Trump announced his Liberation Day goal of hiking up tariffs on foreign-made goods in order to force more production domestically. Billionaires have fared no better than the average Joe, as tonight's By the Numbers shows. I know you're probably looking for the smallest violin you can find, right? But the world's 500 richest people collectively lost more than $530 billion in the first 2 days of stock market trading after Trump's Liberation Day announcement last week. But no one lost more than Elon Musk. He's seen more than 30% of his net worth, $135 billion, disappear in the last year. That's according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. Tesla stock alone has lost half its value in the past 4 months and is now trading at the same price it was in December of 2020. Only one other billionaire among the top 40 or so have fared as poorly as Musk in the past year, and that's Michael Dell. He's lost $35 billion in the past year. That's also about 30% of his net worth. Dell, of course, founded Dell Computers. The world's second and third richest people behind Musk, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, have also seen their net worth plummet this past year. $67 billion down the drain, or 15% of their combined net worth. Of the world's 18 richest people, only Warren Buffett has seen a profit this past year. Buffett's net worth has jumped by more than $11 billion as analysts continue to fret about a possible bear market. Coming up, the final season of Hulu's smash hit, The Handmaid's Tale, drops today, and we're joined by the show's star and executive producer, Elizabeth Moss. Harriet Tubman was erased from the National Park Service's page about the Underground Railroad. We'll tell you what it took to restore it when we come back. What quick-thinking deputies used in a desperate fire rescue, a gun discharges in an elementary schooler's backpack, and why a major historical figure was erased from a government website. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown.
Gotcha.
Michigan deputies jumped into action as a fire raged at an apartment complex, trapping residents inside. Deputies found several residents trapped on their second-floor balconies. As the fire spread on the first floor, the smoke became heavy and the residents could not reach their front doors, police said. Through quick thinking, one of the police officers was able to back up his pickup truck to several balconies, where people were rescued and brought onto the back of the vehicle. The parents of a third grader have been arrested after a gun accidentally was fired from a Virginia classroom, officials say. The handgun discharged inside a student's backpack. No injuries were reported. A man was shot and killed after he brought a gun to a North Carolina hospital. According to deputies, a security officer tried to subdue the man before law enforcement arrived after the man pointed a gun at several ER personnel. The security officer was injured and received treatment at the ER. Officials say the suspect then fired his gun at law enforcement, injuring 3 deputies. No word yet on a possible motive. The North Carolina Bureau of Investigation is investigating. A lucky driver in a Philadelphia suburb walked away from her wrecked SUV after a dead tree fell on the vehicle as she was stopped in traffic. Security footage shows the moment the tree fell on the white SUV outside a gas station in Kenneth Square, Pennsylvania, crushing part of the vehicle. Just moments later, you can see the driver get out of the vehicle and rush away from the wreckage. Bayer, the global agrochemical manufacturer of the popular weed killer Roundup, has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to decide whether federal law preempts thousands of state lawsuits, alleging it failed to warn people that its popular weed killer could cause cancer. The Supreme Court in 2022 declined to hear a similar claim from Bayer in a California case that awarded more than $86 million to a married couple. Bayer faces about 181,000 Roundup claims, mostly from residential users. Bayer disputes the cancer claims, but has set aside $16 billion to settle cases and asserted that the future of American agriculture is at stake. A National Park Service webpage about the Underground Railroad, prominently showing the abolitionist leader Harriet Tubman, has been restored. The move came after the site had removed a large photo and quotes from her. In a statement, the National Park Service said that changes to the page had been made without approval from the agency and that the old version had been immediately restored.
It is a smash hit show that has captivated audiences worldwide for 9 years. And starting today, the last season is now available to stream on Hulu. We're talking, of course, about The Handmaid's Tale. And for star Elizabeth Moss, it's been quite a ride as executive producer and the show's lead character, June Osborne. Stephanie Ramos caught up with her for a preview of what fans can expect and the lessons we should all take away as the show wraps up.
Girls. I know this must feel very strange.
It's been 9 years, right?
Yeah.
9 years. So 9 years of Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
I cannot believe it because I've been watching since episode 1 and it is so addictive. It is such a wonderful show. Did you think that the show would go on for this long?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you ever think it's going to go on for as long as it does. Sometimes, like Mad Men, we didn't think was going to go for that long. You just don't think that way. You kind of just hope that the first season works, and then you're like, okay, good, now we're going to do a second one. That's great.
No, I don't usually do a lot of laughing or smiling while I'm wearing this.
And definitely didn't think it was the 6 seasons were going to take 9 years.
So this is the latest and the last season,
Yes.
season 6.
Rise up and fight for your freedom.
What can we expect? I feel like there's a whole lot that we expect, but what can you tell us at this point?
I think, what can I tell you? I feel like
It's definitely a jam-packed season. There's so much that happens. There's not a dull moment. It's very much a fulfilling season, I think, for the fans. It feels very much like a sort of love letter to them and rewarding them for their patience after 9 years of watching this show.
June Osborne has been through a lot in the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. So would you say that June shaped your own personal life in a way over the years? I would imagine that after so many years, you have this connection with June.
I mean, I have often said recently, because I've been thinking a lot about it as we do these sort of, discussions, and it really hasn't been my life the past 9 years. It's been a part of my life. It's been my life. It really has had, I've worked on it most of the year, 7 days a week, between prep, production, and post. It's a lot. It's definitely been all-consuming. And as I've carried on in the show, I've started as an actor, producer, then moved to EP, and then moved to director. And I've really done those jobs, which was important to me, to really do those jobs and not just have a sort of credit or title.
What about being a mom?
Yeah.
You became a mom last year,
Yeah.
right? So how did that?
Year already?
Was that?
Yeah, time flies.
It goes by really fast. I have a teenager.
I bet.
So how did that change your perspective when you went into work to play June, knowing how it feels to be a mom?
Yeah, it definitely made things more emotional and more visceral. It was impossible not to. I kind of liken it to, as an actor, you have to imagine yourself being in different places that you're not, or being different people that you're not. And you put yourself in those positions when you're playing a mom. It just is impossible not to. So I definitely just felt like the tears just came like a little bit quicker.
Right.
Or a little bit more real,
Let's talk a little bit about the political climate, if we can. The show began during President Trump's first presidency, and now it's ending during his second. What have been your thoughts, or the cast's thoughts on the parallels between what this country is seeing now and what we've seen in the show?
Yeah, I don't think The Handmaid's Tale as a property, whether you're talking about the book, which was, by the way, 40 years ago. This is its 40th anniversary. It was written and came out in 1985. I don't think this book, this material has ever lived in a world where it hasn't been relevant. And at the time, in 85, and I've done interviews with Margaret where she's talked about this, Margaret Atwood, the writer, and she's talked about how everything that she put into that book had already happened. It was all based in truth. It was all based in fact.
Where is June Osborne?
Is there a lesson that the audience should draw from this season, or any of the seasons, anything that viewers should take with them as this show comes to an end?
I feel like, for me personally, the show is very much about choices in life and how you can choose to do the right thing and you can choose to follow the right path. And I think that even, in the circumstances that June and some of the other characters have in the show, what's inspiring to me is when they do choose to do the right thing. And there's some surprises this season about who does and who, unfortunately, does not choose the right path. And I think for me, it's a very personal thing, this show. It's not as simple as it's about a great mom or, I think it's about this person who will never, ever give up on who she loves. And I think that's a beautiful message.
It really is.
Yeah,
it definitely is. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank
You're
you.
incredible. And
Thank
I love
you
what
very
you said
much.
about walking, that message that viewers should walk away with from watching, just doing the right thing and being on the right path.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
To finally declare enough.
Our thanks to Stephanie and Elizabeth for that conversation. The new show is now streaming on Hulu. Disney is the parent company of ABC and Hulu. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.